Hi, I'm Jane McCormick, and this is my show, Breaking My Silence, Minnesota View. And I have a wonderful guest here today, and he's going to be talking about experiences that he had in his life that were just absolutely devastating experiences that no dad and mom should have to go through. And his name is Al Erickson.
Right.
And this is Al. So say hi to everybody,
Hey,
Al.
good to meet you, and good to be here, Jane.
So glad you're here.
Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit about what happened with your daughter when she was a young girl, and what happened to her?
Well, it was surely unexpected for us. I mean, it just shocked all of us and the whole family, including herself. When I look back on it, it's a little bit different because I can see some things that kind of set her up for some problems.
Oh.
But I think most of us parents don't think that way. We haven't looked at our daughters or sons as vulnerable. Maybe we've looked at them as misbehaving or something like that.
That makes sense.
But in terms of what has happened in their lives, or even knowing sometimes what's happened in their lives,
Most parents don't.
Yeah. So we overlook a lot of things. And we were in Papua New Guinea back when she was in the 2nd grade. This is north of Australia. Well, there was a teacher she had in the 2nd grade who was a very troubled woman. And nobody was paying much attention to it. It was a woman from Australia. And she was quite abusive to her 2nd graders. So right there, you've got a young child being talked to in a way they should never have to deal with, and being put down and so forth. When we got them to the United States and she was in the 3rd grade, we moved to a town where she had just had mononucleosis. And so she was kind of set back by that.
Oh.
And you know what it is, and when you move into a small town and you've got some extra problems like that, and you're a little kid and you're not part of the community yet.
Yeah.
And
it's hard.
And I was a pastor there.
Yeah.
So you kind of got a double-barreled situation. And I think most people don't realize that it's very easy for a pastor's kid to be thought of as a little bit different, and they should be of a different standard or something, So again, you're kind of setting things on edge, and the child is sort of looked at differently, and then that stigma of maybe not being able to cope with things well. That gets to them, and that starts to carry through, too.
That's true.
I think a lot of small communities don't realize that right within their own community, anybody moving into that community should be getting a lot more support from the whole community because the kids are just going to be naturally kind of cruel and so that's just the way it is.
Children are one of the cruelest people, they're cruelest animals out there. Kids are mean to each other.
Yeah, and so you start with a situation where no matter what you do after a while, you've kind of got that reputation.
Right.
And
then your child, you being the pastor, was probably even worse for her.
Yeah, it gets to be. So, how do you make friends and how do you live? I mean, we have to realize kids are kids, and they're not adults, and they haven't figured out a lot of things. No. So we moved to Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles she went to a school, and that went out pretty well. She came to Minneapolis. She was a young woman who somebody said she was without guile. She was not a person that put people down. She liked to work with handicapped kids.
Oh.
She was a servant. Now, here in Minnesota, what I found is we've got something called Minnesota Nice. And Minnesota Nice is like, I'm going to trust people. I'm going to stay with them for a while. I'm not going to send them off like I might in New York City or something. I'm not going to be abrupt with them.
Right.
I'm going to try to listen to them, see what their story is. I'm not going to hurt their feelings unnecessarily. So that all sets up a person for if you meet the wrong person, and we've got a lot of Minnesota kids that have no idea they'll ever meet the wrong person, and neither do their parents. One of the things I've learned in this whole thing, and I've been in it now a long time, is that you can be vulnerable and get through it because you don't meet the people who take advantage of that vulnerability.
True.
But if you happen to meet a drug dealer, a gang leader, a cult leader, pimping person, somebody who wants to take advantage of you, even the person that's going to marry you.
Right.
And that person starts to see your weaknesses and starts to play on those weaknesses and prey on those weaknesses, and things begin to happen. So
They con them into...
So in this case, she had been probably used by a friend of ours that we didn't know about, and then went off to college.
Are you talking about maybe possible molestation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she went off to college, and she was date raped there. And how does a person deal with date rape? I think a lot of people don't realize. I had to learn the hard way. So I'm talking from a person that grew up in Montana, and we trusted people in Montana. You know, I hitchhiked. I gave riders to hitchhikers, gave rides. So I was used to a society, a culture where bad things didn't happen that much, and you just worked with people.
Right.
Anyway, in her case, what happened is she went to we didn't realize after the date rape what can happen to a person.
Oh.
I've had to learn that, you know, grades go down sometimes.
Yeah.
People get promiscuous.
Mentally.
They don't know. We worked with a high school here in the Twin City area once, and one of the girls there that we were working with, where there was a bunch of students who were trying to get into this issue that we're talking about today.
Right.
This one girl said, I was raped 3 weeks ago, and I feel so vulnerable. I feel so vulnerable. You know, I mean, a person like that needs a lot of support.
Oh, they need counseling right away, because it's I was raped when I was a young girl, and it's something that you can't deal with by yourself, because if you do, you just get to feeling so vulnerable. In other words, you don't trust. I mean, how can you trust another guy?
Exactly.
He's liable to, if you get him in the car with them or something, you're liable to be raped again. And you got this basic fear of it, and then you deal. If they deal with it by themselves, like I did, it's hard.
Well, one of the things I've learned is it's very easy for a person who's been raped to internalize it and start to say, I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have. All that kind of stuff.
I shouldn't have said that. Exactly what we do. That's what
and so, unbeknown to anybody else, if they're keeping that to themselves, it's like that conversation gets strong, and it's like maybe I'm defective some way, or I'm no good, or whatever. It's easy to tear a person down, oneself down internally.
Oh God, yeah, easy.
So along comes a guy who was at a Christian gathering with my daughter, and he purported to be like a good guy and Christian, and became her boyfriend. Well, 2 months later, he got arrested for burglary and was put in Stillwater prison.
Ooh.
But as you know, Jane, these guys know how to look good. They know how to put themselves across as the people that
This is
are
the
going to be there
nicest guy.
for you no matter what,
Yep.
and a wonderful future, all that stuff. Well, it turned out that several years later, actually, he was able to get her picture and send it to a guy in Detroit. Now, this guy in Detroit, he was a procurer. He was an expert in how you recruit girls into this. Now, he came all the way from Detroit. One night, we were living in the inner city of Minneapolis, and one night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I looked out the window, and I saw just across the alley a car with a guy sitting in it. He was drinking pop from 7-Eleven or something. And I asked myself, what is he doing here? You know, and the only thing I could think of was he was spying on our house.
Oh my goodness.
And so he was there, and I thought, well, shall I call the police? And I knew the police weren't going to do much in that kind of situation. They might approach him, but there was no evidence of anything. So I didn't. I probably should have. It would have been good to do it,
Good
actually,
idea.
because that would have
Your
put
gut
him
feeling,
put him on the police record, you know.
Yep.
And that would have
Being sitting there.
possibly scared him. Anyway, I believe now that it was the guy from Detroit.
Oh my Lord.
Well, he traced down our daughter, who was in a different place. She was living with one of our other family members, and he traced her down and followed her and found out she was working downtown in cleaning business, cleaning skyscrapers, and that once in a while she came to this 7-Eleven with a movie like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, she went to that 7-Eleven, and it was like, she went in, she was the only customer in the place.
Right.
Well, suddenly a guy comes running in. Now, by this time, she had had a child out of wedlock, so she knew something about this. He comes running in, and he says, oh, my girlfriend's right around the corner here, and I need help. She's in labor, I think, and what can I do? Can someone come and help me? Well, obviously, who could come and help? There was only one person in the place. So she went around, and there were a number of people in this room. There was a woman laying on the couch, and she kind of examined this room, and you know, told her what she thought.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The guy from Detroit is sitting over in the corner. He had set this whole thing up. I mean, you can't, you know, the networking that happens with this, the conning,
cunning ways that they
yeah,
work.
you know, you can't believe it's happening.
No.
So
No.
he started talking to her, well, you know, just casually,
Yeah.
nothing fancy.
Oh no.
You know, he's not putting himself out there like he's trying to get into her life or something.
No.
So she started.
Trying to be from friends.
She started telling him that, you know, she was in the cleaning business and stuff, and he said, "Oh, by the way, you know, I know a woman out in Santa Monica, California, who is in the cleaning business, and you know, I'm from California myself. Would you be interested in talking to this woman?" Well, that sounded kind of good to her.
Yeah.
So the next morning, they got together somehow and were on the telephone.
Yeah.
And she started talking to this woman in California. Well, for 55 minutes, she talked to this woman.
Wow.
It might have been the woman who was only around the corner.
That's very true.
But she, you know, the woman said, well, yeah, we just lost one of our cleaning ladies, and you know, if
Probably
you came
told her
out
to
here,
make big money.
well, not too much money, a couple dollars more an hour,
Right.
you know, but there was a place to stay, and we had been in California for a year, so she knew something of this, and it had an appeal. At the same time, this guy, I think, was charming her.
Oh,
And, you know, he was a good-looking guy, probably, and, you know, it looked kind of good. Well, what I found with Minnesota girls, and this happened here, is sometimes they take a step that is a bigger step than they need to take.
Oh.